After a strong start, the Arizona Cardinals sputter late and lose in a way you'd expect them to lose their games in 2024. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see me spew things out of my big dumb face instead of just listening wherever you get your podcasts there. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Cardinals lose 38-24. Tale of two halves. I'm going to break all of it down. I'm recording this right after the game. This will serve as the Monday show, but I wanted to get it out to you guys early. We'll talk to negatives. There was a large chunk of them. We'll talk to positives. There were an important chunk of those, even though there may be more negatives than positives. But all in all, this was kind of a feel-out game. The Cardinals didn't look great after the first quarter. The Bills didn't look bad after the first half. And there were a lot of things that came into play here that we kind of expect to see as trends throughout the 2024 season because of where the talent is located on the Arizona Cardinals roster. So, Cardinals go up 7-0. They're up 17-3 at right before the half. The Bills score a touchdown to go down 17-10. Bills score 14 points in the third, and the Cardinals outscore the Bills 11-10 in the fourth. But it was how things happened that were kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So what I mean by that is like, listen, this excuse, because this is more of an excuse/reason than anything. This is week one. Okay, this is kind of the barometer check for where the Cardinals are after starters didn't play in the preseason, and they're going on the road against a perennial playoff team in the AFC and the Buffalo Bills, even though they're different, formed this year with talent on both sides of the ball. They still have got Josh Allen, who's an MVP candidate every year, and he showed why today. So when the Cardinals go in, first quarter, the first drive itself was masterful. 7+ minutes, resulting in a touchdown. One of the keys to victory for the Cardinals I mentioned were touchdowns, not field goals. They started off strong there. And then they turn Josh Allen over, get the ball, come down and kick a field goal. Things are looking good. But this is the thing that it's a good reminder right away to where when the offense isn't going perfectly and they aren't turning the opposing team over, when it's just bare knuckle brawls, the Cardinals have severe deficiencies. So right when things started to not go exactly the Cardinals' way, that's when things broke down. And that's the thing that the Cardinals are going to have to work on throughout the year, especially with the defense being where it is. So when you look at the full 60-minute game, the Cardinals had chances to win. Okay, the DeeJay Dallas kickoff return for a touchdown kind of brought the Cardinals back from the dead in the fourth after Josh Allen, they moved the ball down the field. Josh Allen took his quarterback sneak for a touchdown, which is the second of the day, which is something you just kind of expect at this point, especially when the Cardinals don't have a pass rush and can't really, stop anybody. But the overwhelming themes here through week one was that the offense looked rusty when it wasn't the passing game, when it wasn't the rushing game. Marvin Harrison Jr. was a non-factor. Michael Wilson was a non-factor except for his touchdown catch early and his drop late, which really just stopped any sort of momentum the Cardinals could have had right out the gate on their final drive. Trey McBride was pretty much a non-factor. And the offensive line, Jonah Williams went down almost right away, missed the rest of the game. We're still waiting on the severity of his injury. Kelvin Beachum came in, played right tackle, and didn't play great. Showed his age. So the depth that I was discussing all offseason, predicated upon Kelvin Beachum being a swing tackle for them, he didn't look great. Now, Gregory Rousseau is one of the better pass rushers in the game, so you can give I guess some kudos to him for that. But how a team adapts to adversity and how the Cardinals adapt to adversity throughout 2024 is really going to be the determining factor on what their ceiling is and what the future of this team looks like. Kyler Murray, first half, looked great in controlled, run-first, dynamic offense. He had a couple scrambles himself in the first and second half, but if you were to grade Kyler Murray's performance today, C+, B-, and you know what? Say you want to give it half of a letter grade because he hasn't played with this specific set of skill position players in their set in 2024 yet. Okay. Drew Petzing, obviously they want to run the ball first. There were a couple really questionable run plays called. One on the last drive on 3rd and 10, and then one earlier in the game on 3rd and medium where you ran an outside zone run to James Conner, and there wasn't a read option in there for Kyler Murray. The defense struggled. Keon Coleman beat Starling Thomas on a one-on-one go route that set up Josh Allen's 6-yard touchdown run. The pass rush was pretty much – so the pass rush was an interesting thing. And I'll discuss more in depth with the positive and negatives as we go here. The pass rush got home behind the line of scrimmage, if you call it home. They got it to the driveway, but couldn't get home. Multiple times. Missed tackles on Josh Allen. Now, part of that is because Josh Allen's an absolute tree trunk, and part of it's because that's the difference between excellent pass rush and average to below average pass rush, being able to wrap up a quarterback regardless of size. And the Cardinals are on the latter there. But when you look at like team stats and things like that, like the Cardinals didn't play a terrible game. Kyler Murray only had 160 passing yards, which wasn't great. But they were 50% on 3rd down. They, and I know this was completely front-loaded because they were on the field for 12 and a half minutes in the first quarter, ended up losing the time of possession battle by 30 seconds to Buffalo. Buffalo dominated the 3rd quarter and kind of rolled that into the 4th. If it wasn't for the DeeJay Dallas kickoff return for a touchdown, we would be speaking even more in negative town than we are now. But as it sits, Cardinals lose 34-28. This is kind of what I was expecting score-wise. I think I said 27-20 in my prediction. But the Cardinals giving up 34 points, this is something that we're just going to have to get used to when we're watching the Cardinals on game day. This is not a time, and I will say this right out of the gate, this is not a time to absolutely go bonkers and say, Monty Osborne doesn't know what he's doing, Jonathan Gannon, Nick Morales, Drew Petzing, Kyler Murray. The Cardinals were in contention for the majority of this game against a perennial deep playoff run team in the AFC and the Bills. Yes, they went up 17-3 and sputtered pretty much the rest of the way. Yes, the Bills have had a downgrade in pass catchers. Dalton Kincaid didn't do much. Dawson Knox didn't do much. Their pass catchers, it was Josh Allen that just ran roughshod. And the Cardinals cannot, throughout the year, turn the ball over and give short fields to opposing teams. I've said this all offseason as we're getting ready towards this game, even so. Kyler Murray losing the ball, the Bills getting a short field. It can't happen. The Cardinal, like the one thing, and I'll go more in depth in this in the rest of the week, the one thing Drew Petzing is going to need to figure out pretty quickly is how to win the time of possession battle while not defaulting to the run I think they ran the ball too much. They ran the ball too much. They took no down the field shots except for the one at the end of the game to Greg Dortch. That was it. So he's going to have to figure out how to have the best defense the Cardinals have as being the run game while also throwing the ball down the field and taking some chances. Something they didn't really do today. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What are the positives first? Because there were some today in the Cardinals' 34-28 loss to the Bills. I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. So, PrizePicks is awesome. Can I say that? It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. If you're not one yet, that should tell you something. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Like, say, you're looking for something, a new outlet, and you're like, wait, what is PrizePicks? Hold on. Another thing. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of the players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks, on PrizePicks, your picks are still live. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. Now, for those that haven't been to therapy, potentially give BetterHelp a try. I've been through therapy on and off my entire life. And, one of the things that I'm targeting now is me losing my curiosity. You get caught up in the rat race, work, family, if you have kids, whatever it may be. But what's something you'd like to learn? Gardening, a new language, or maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling? Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com. Cardinals lose 38-24. Ugh. Just feels gross. The Cardinals were the better team on the field for the first 27 minutes of the game. And then you could kind of feel when the Bills scored that touchdown, it's like 17-3 is a lot different than 17-10, especially when the Bills got the ball to start the second half. Positives. Okay? Because there are some, okay? And I know it's difficult after a loss. The positives are, number one, the Cardinals, aside from one drive where the refs were kind of making makeup calls for, and I'm not one. I'm never one to blame refs. Ever. Questionable calls. One was on Zaven Collins where they called a face mask, which, everybody around the Twitter sphere is saying that it's a makeup call for the late hit on Kyler Murray call earlier in the game. The Cardinals' penalties, that's an upside. Okay, that's a positive. For a team that hasn't played as starting 11 during the preseason, that's a positive. 4 for 31. The majority of them were on one drive. So that shows preparation. Okay, I'm not giving green ribbons out after a loss. Okay, that's just a truth because we don't know. Like last year, the Cardinals were a penalty machine to start the season, an absolute penalty machine to start the season. Third down efficiency, 7 for 13. Obviously, you don't want to hit 13 third down opportunities, but being over 50% third down opportunities, good. It's a positive, okay? Keeps possessions moving. Kyler Murray running the ball, 5 for 57, positive. There was only one, I believe, absolute designed run for him, and the rest were, in the gray area plays, which is what I call them. Plays break down, and this is something that I'll talk about in the negatives as well, where maybe you should have run the ball a few more times out of necessity instead of being in the pocket so long. James Conner, first half, looked great. Okay. The rushing attack overall, A-. It was methodical. The play calling of the runs, though, on 3rd and long twice. Like, I know the Cardinals at the end of the game wanted to get some chunk yards to get that 3rd and 10 down to 4th and 6 or 4th and 7. You put the ball in your best player's hands and Kyler Murray there, and you kind of just wait to see what happens there, in my opinion. But overall, I mean, James Conner looked good. Trey Benson, immediately. He only had 3 carries, but he looked immediately comfortable at the NFL level, which is good. So the run game, which is the strength of this team, was a positive taken out of this game, even though the Cardinals lost. And the pass catching, I don't really know if there is. I mean, Greg Dortch had 6 catches for 47 yards. That's disheartening that the top receiver for the Arizona Cardinals had 47 yards receiving with an offense that's supposed to be, a little bit more high powered than this, even though they do need, to focus on running the ball and eating clock, et cetera, to make it for the defense. Now, positives on the defensive side of the ball. Mack Wilson looked great. He looked great. He had a huge tackle for loss at the end of the game to get the Cardinals the ball back. He looked great. He had a couple spring plays. Kazir White did get burned in coverage twice in the middle of the field, I believe. But both of those linebackers, look to be what they need to be for the Cardinals on the defensive side of the ball. Now, the pass rush just needs to get better. The run defense wasn't great, but aside from a couple big plays, the interior defense didn't look awful. Okay? It's a step up from last year. And then this is kind of teetering on the fence of both positive and negative. The Cardinals had a couple incredible open field tackles to stop big plays. Jalen Thompson had one. Jalen Thompson is known for. Kazir White had one. Mack Wilson had a couple. Again, we'll talk about the negatives too with the pass rush getting home, or getting to the driveway but not getting home. So overall, when you look at today's game, the goods were good. The problem is there weren't enough of them to overshadow the negatives, which is what we're most likely going to see, especially on the defensive side of the ball, more than we don't. So while I implore you to pump the brakes on, this is what it's going to be for 17 weeks, their Cardinals are in trouble, I'm not saying that if that does happen, we will not be having wildly different conversations. My allegiances to anybody that I discuss on the Arizona Cardinals, I don't have any. The only allegiance I have is to you, everydayers. Come on. The negatives. Yeah, let's do that. Next, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the GameTime app. Listen, GameTime, it makes everything so easy. Okay? They even have a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Here are some things you could find on the GameTime app. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Lowest price guarantee, or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. And then seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. It changes everything. You can see what your seats are going to look like before you buy them with the GameTime app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? GameTime. Cardinals lose 38-24. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. The new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the bad man Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of of NFL Espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. And the Locked On Local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. You'll be able to catch me with Tyler Rowland every Monday morning, kicking your week off, talking about all things NFL. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. The negatives. Let's just start with the most important player, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's pocket presence seems to have not improved through 1 week. Kyler Murray has a specific set of skills that he needs to figure out how to use at a better rate. There was the sack, I believe it was Gregory Rousseau, who beat Kelvin Beachum like he stole his lunch money. And Kyler Murray should have already been out of the pocket. Now, there was one play earlier in the game that resulted in the Michael Wilson touchdown where Kyler Murray had the pump fake. They had everybody looking around, and then he was able to find Michael Wilson. You're not going to be able to get away with that much in the NFL, especially if you start to do it and, opposing teams will catch on quickly. Kyler Murray is best when he's outside of the pocket, unless there's a deep pocket and, he has time. I feel like they need to figure out, and there's one thing that Drew Petzing did well is there was one time with James Conner and one time with Amari DiMercato where he has that outlet behind the line of scrimmage just sitting there waiting unless Kyler Murray has to scramble and he has to toss to somebody. And that's not, a new concept in the NFL. But they need to figure out a way to cater this offense even more to Kyler Murray and him being 5'10". Like, the conversations we're going to have if things don't change, if Kyler Murray continues to get balls beaten down or balls batted down at the line, like every quarterback gets balls batted down, okay? But they need to figure out a way, if they're going to run screen passes, to keep that from happening. That happened at least once today with James Conner waiting for a screen pass. They need to find the elixir that gets Kyler Murray in space, has balls batted down less, and is still able to see the ball down the field. Because I'll tell you what, if they don't figure that out, why did they draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? And again, these are not conversations to have now, and I don't know if they'll ever have to be had. I'm assuming they won't. Kyler Murray today didn't have the pocket awareness necessary to be able to maximize this offense unless they're running the ball. That's one. There is no world where he should be averaging 7 yards of completion. There just isn't. With the amount of skill position players they'll have on all three levels, short, intermediate, and deep, there's no world where Kyler Murray should have 21 completions and have 160 yards. That's one. Now, the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line played great. I should have put them in positives. They played a lot better than expected. Evan Brown played pretty well. Yalta Froholt kept the pocket deep, and Will Hernandez played fine on the right. Prater Jr. played okay on the left. He got beat once by Gregory Rousseau. Kelvin Beachum didn't play great. But the offensive line was not a negative today. It was not a negative. This is Kyler Murray needing to figure it out. And the one, and again, not excuse, this is actually just a fact. Kyler Murray's never played with this offensive line before. Okay? The offensive line was a positive, a major one for the majority of the game. And especially with Kyler Murray's skill set, he's going to have to make do with the best offensive line he's had in the NFL. Okay? That's one. Two, the pass rush. The fact that they had some defenders get behind the line of scrimmage and have a chance at Josh Allen multiple times and were unable to bring him down, the biggest negative of the day. That's what stops everything. And it seemed like every time they missed him, the Bills would get a couple first downs afterwards. Can't happen. The Arizona Cardinals cannot afford to be their own worst enemy. And for a good portion of the second half today, they were. Save the DeeJay Dallas return for a touchdown. For a large portion of today, they were their own worst enemy. They had unnecessary, unforced errors during key positions and key places on the field during snaps, like behind the line of scrimmage. They could have sacked Josh Allen 4 times today. Should have, regardless of how big and strong he is. They should have sacked Josh Allen 4 times today. And they didn't. 6-point game. That's it. Who knows if he fumbles the ball again. The more hits you can get on a quarterback, regardless of talent level, the better the chance you have to be opportunistic turnover-wise. And beating him down throughout the game makes his play weaker. I don't know if you guys need to hear that. Can I just show you the dictionary definition of why you should sack quarterbacks? That was the biggest negative today. Kyler Murray needs to play better, needs to throw the ball down the field. And missing Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open for a touchdown, missing Trey McBride earlier in the game wide open for a touchdown. Listen, if they've got to play him in shotgun, the Cardinals cannot falter because Kyler Murray isn't 6'5". They've got to figure out how to maximize it. And at more of a downhill pace than 7 yards per completion and only the offense only really working when they were running the ball. Because if at this point, if I'm opposing defenses, I stack the box. Because not only will that stop the run, but it'll also stop the short passes to Trey McBride and Greg Dortch or whoever it is. So the Cardinals will need to figure it out very quickly. Otherwise, you're going to see an exact repeat performance next week. The offense will have a ceiling of between 20, 23, 24, and 30 points a game. And this is the defense. This isn't the ceiling for how much the defense can give up points-wise. The Bills gifted the Cardinals a couple possessions. So while it's only week 1, and these are reasons and not excuses as to why maybe the Cardinals weren't as sharp as they should have been today, reasons can turn into excuses very quickly if things don't change. The one thing I will say, and this isn't just seeing, the bright side for just to say it. The Cardinals could have lost 40-10 today if they didn't go up 17-3 to start the game. They were in this game. It was a one-possession game. They had the ball, and they didn't win the game. It could have been a lot worse, and if they don't change things quickly, with Kyler Murray getting open in space, finding Marvin Harrison Jr., throwing the ball down the field, and not just relying on the run, it will get worse than that. But for now, the Cardinals had a valiant effort. There were some positives. This was the one preseason game that happens to be in the regular season for everybody. There was a lot of bad football played today. The Cardinals did not play terribly. They just didn't play well enough. Like, if this is how the Cardinals play the entirety of the year, they're going to win 4 games or 5 games. They're close. A couple adjustments, they're close to becoming a lot better and more efficient than they are now. So this isn't like a runaway train into negative town by any stretch. Could have been better. They definitely could have won today, but they didn't. And maybe this will be a better learning experience for them than if they did win. I will tell you this. One thing I promise you, if things start to shift, you will not 1% of the time see me making excuses for things that shouldn't be made excuses for. I promise you that. Alex Nancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you on Tuesday.